You're also kind of describing some different patterns here, and you did give the example of the low tight flag. Do
Yeah.
you have any other examples of that, just to kind of um, flesh out exactly what it is that you're looking for, and the look of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that has a lot of power, like a high tight flag. So Ford was one
But
that
just not
traded.
quite as much.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a leading stock. It's trading really orderly. Got a little choppy. This looks like a lot of traders playing around with things, and then I want to see everybody flushed, and then I'm buying it in there. Bought it this day, and I wanted to hold for a bigger move, but this just kind of dropped out. I'm selling some into strength, of course,
Hmm.
but this had that kind of power to it. Um, you know,
So Leif, when it kind of emerged initially, kind of within that base, up to 2149,
yeah.
would that have been another place that you might have been tempted, or would you have looked at that and said, it's probably a little too early?
Yeah, it's a little early. So part of the low tight flag, it's not a high tight flag, which is 3 to
Right.
5 weeks you want to see in the flag. So I like to see a little bit of a longer base.
Okay.
Mm.
Uh,
Okay. Interesting.
and,
Okay.
and that's the same with the rocket base. It's sort of
Yep.
stuff I'm not trying to invent anything. It's just my observations when I have something like BMEA I just showed. Even Riot over here.
You probably need to change the
In the
date.
wrong year. Sorry.
Yeah.
Let's see. That's not a good spot there, obviously. So yeah,
Oh, but
this
this
one.
looks, yeah.
So
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 it
so
came,
describe what you mean by rocket base.
well, okay. So it had the high tight flag power. This quick pull, the rise, right, is
Yes.
over 100% in 8 weeks or less, and then the drop is over 25%. So all I'm looking for is just another base. I'm not inventing anything new. So we just want to see a base coming from that power with less than 50% decline
Hmm.
after the pull. If it
Mhm.
declines less than 50%, I want to see 6 to 10 weeks. And there were some stocks, 2020, where we did this. We bought the rocket base, like I think Yela. Samir reminded me of Yela. He says, "Look what's back." Something if I go back, maybe I go back like 2020. Do this. Maybe I get lucky here in
Or maybe
2021.
20. Yeah. Then you'll
Something
see. Oh,
like
there
in
you go.
here. I think we
Yeah.
were buying this one.
Yeah.
I don't remember where, but this went up 100% in
Wow.
very quickly. Uh, and then it just all these stocks just went away. So
Right.
Yeah.
So
you
so
gotta,
like
you gotta,
I think Yale
yeah,
is a good example of, okay, you see this stock going up like 100+%,
yeah,
but where, especially when you're newer to this, it's easier to, I mean, it's pretty easy to let these things fall off the radar, right? And all of a sudden they take off again. Like, oh my God,
yeah.
that stock that was running up, 2 months ago is taking off again, and I missed it again. How do you kind of stay organized to really track these so you get in at those kind of optimal times?
Well, I'm not looking at any of this stuff really that it's not in trend, and I'm using this idea of the Minervini trend template. I'm using the stocks.
Right.
What that does is sets up stocks in proper bases. The right sides
Yep.
of the bases will be right. Going back here, and you could be very sloppy with your buy points in 2020. And I think I bought Fubo, just on a pullback buy here in a high tight flag,
Oh,
and
Right.
this
interesting.
went
Yeah.
100% in 5 days or something like that. We sold right
Yeah.
into that.
Hmm.
So
Well, now when you have something, and because again, I remember that Fubo move. I think there was news happening, and I did that have to do with like gambling, maybe as
Yeah, well,
well.
they were working on a gambling thing.
They
So
were
yeah,
working on the
that would
gambling
make
thing.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you have something that's news related like that,
right.
how do you kind of handle that? Because especially with something like that where it was like, oh, everyone was so excited, and then it just kind of dropped like a rock
Well, that's
very
just where
quickly.
you're taking profits and moving up your stop, and as it turns around on you, you got to get out, taking out the lows with something like this.
Hmm.
Then we're using your basic chart pattern and trailing stops, and we're not worrying about the news and something like this. I'm looking at the volume really too. You have this is your dead volume spot right there. I can just see on the chart based on from right here. So
Hmm.
that's meaningful on the pullback buy. I want to see a kind of low volume area, and this is it's all very elevated here, from what we're seeing. But for the most part, in a nice, orderly, neat textbook pullback, you're going to have that low volume spot, and that's when the turn is meaningful, in my view, most of the time. If everything is setting up for the stock and the group looks good, so that's just something to think about.